cover story conversation. I have with me Suhail Seth and Dr. Sanjay Baru. Both of them don't need any introduction, but as we know, Suhail Seth is a columnist and a marketing maven and a commentator. Dr. Baru has been the media advisor to Dr. Manmohan Singh. He's written a whole lot of books, from the accidental prime minister to one that actually I'm rereading right now, India's Power Elite, because it kind of ties in with the conversation we're going to be having today. We're going to be discussing the dominant narratives of the Modi government and the narratives in India today. Is Hinduism, Hindu Rashtra the dominant takeaway, or is it the rise of a new middle class that is non-English speaking, Hindi speaking, public school, government school more than elite private boarding schools? What is the dominant takeaway from the Modi government? Dr. Baru, I'll begin with you first. First we can do one by one themes, but the most dominant theme, which one would you say?
Well, Priya, I would first of all distinguish between what we see as a dominant theme of Narendra Modi and his BJP, and to what extent has that been converted into a dominant theme by the media. I think now we have for the first time a mainstream media that is completely complicit in the promotion of a political perspective of the ruling party. This has never happened before. It happened briefly during the emergency, but even in the emergency, you had voices that were willing to, be different. So when we talk of a dominant perspective, I think one must distinguish between what we see as a dominant perspective because people feel that way. I mean, you said, for example, is the view of the non-English speaking middle class become the dominant view? Frankly, in my view, that has always been important. After all, they are the majority in the country. They've always been the majority in the country. So to say now that the non-English speaking view is the dominant view, I think is only a partial truth. But the point now is that even the English media, which in the past may have reflected the views of this so-called English-speaking elite, today reflects the view of the dominant political party, which claims to be speaking in the voice of the Hindi-speaking majority. Second point I'll make is that there is a Hindi-speaking middle class and there is a non-Hindi-speaking middle class. And I think we should not confuse the two, because those of us who come from non-Hindi speaking areas, there is a middle class in South India, there is a middle class in Bengal, there is a middle class in Punjab, there is a middle class in several parts of this country, which is not speaking in the same language of the middle class of Uttar Pradesh or Madhya Pradesh. And so I think this kind of pan-Indian narrative that there is now a non-English speaking all India middle class that thinks alike, I think would be a very restrictive way of interpreting whatever is the dominant thing. For example, you take right now, I mean, I assume our discussion is in the context of the Ram Mandir being opened up. The whole dialogue on Ram. I mean, you have had 4 Shankaracharyas, criticizing the timing of this. Now, there are a large number of followers of these Shankaracharyas, of various mutts across the country, So I don't think we should, but on the other hand, the media, the mainstream media, Hindi media particularly, continues to have only one view on television. So let me just conclude by saying that we must distinguish between what we see as the role of the media in this projecting what we call the dominant perspective and the real politics on the ground.
Okay, fair enough. So, Sohail, your first thoughts on this?
So, taking off from where Dr. Baru left, there are 3 or 4 things that are happening in India today. The polity and the population of India has changed dramatically in the way it thinks. We've become more muscular in our foreign policy. We have become more confident. There's more chest thumping, whether it's for the right reasons or the wrong reasons, but it exists. More and more Indians are saying, "Ab hum aa gaye hain. It's now our turn." That is buoyed by public opinion from politicians. They are also shaping the narrative that it's very much like what George W. Bush said after 9/11. You're either with us or against us. Here, it's become tricky. If you are against the narrative, you're immediately seen as anti-Indian. That is where the media is actually contributing to accentuating that negative narrative, a large part of the media. See, you have to understand the strategic negativity that is being spawned. And I won't blame Narendra Modi. As I've said innumerable times on your program, it is not his business to create a narrative which suits his opposition. His business is to win an election. It is our business to make sure that questions are asked. And if questions are not asked, so be it. That's the tragedy. The second, and here I have to, expand the thinking. There is no question that the majority in India is Hindu. There's no doubting that. If you see, we are almost surrounded by countries which have declared religion as their state of being. The Islamic Republic of Pakistan. Nepal is a Hindu kingdom. Bangladesh is Islamic in that sense. We have had a situation where people other than Narendra Modi have actually used appeasement as an electoral weapon. What he's doing is he's using that too. So how is he different? If you go back into history, Indira Gandhi used the Muslim vote, which voted en bloc, as a weapon of mass electoral destruction of opposition. Modi is saying, look, why should the Hindus be apologetic? Which is actually playing into, as you rightly said in your opening remarks, it is playing into the hands of this muscular, vernacular, middle class, no matter where. Please understand, here I have a slight disagreement, Dr. Baru. The concept of religion is with equal fervor spread in the south of India as it is in the north of India. If you observe, the last 2 days, Narendra Modi has spent in the south of India. He has been to temples like Guruvayur. He has been to Lepakshi. He has done all the temple runs. And I'll tell you one thing. I am an atheist, but I love going to temples. I adore going to temples. My in-laws live in Thrissur. So I go to Guruvayur every year during Onam. In fact, when my child was born, the first thing you have to do amongst Malayalis is the grains of rice so that she starts her education is done within the temple precincts. So the point is, earlier the Hindus were ashamed of saying we are Hindus for fear of being branded communal. Today it's come a full circle. Today, if you say Hindu, you're again branded communal. But if you say that, no, I don't believe in Hinduism, I think then you're. Also, what has happened in a very clever manner, I won't say devious, in a very pernicious manner, if I can use that phrase, is that the lines between Hinduism and Hindutva have been blurred.
Yeah.
The lines between Hinduism as a way of life and Hindutva as a way of governance have been blurred. That is the problem. Now you see, Acharya Pramod said something very interesting. He says, Congress to Mahatma Gandhi के नीतियों पे चल रही है, पर महात्मा गांधी ने खुद कहा था कि सबसे बढ़िया राज्य वो होता है जो राम राज्य होता है. To which I have a different twist, which I told someone from the BBC when they asked me, oh, what do you think of the temple? I said, for years, we kept saying India is run Ram Bharose. Now it's our turn to thank Lord Ram, which is what we are doing with this temple.
Okay. There's one point of observation more than disagreement is today, I think, Sohail, being a Hindu is not being communal, is being nationalistic, and being secular is being seen as communal. That's
exactly.
the way
But you see, it is these people who created identity out of religion, which actually interfered with the democracy that we had inherited or we had carved out for ourselves. My issue is not, see, you cannot stop someone from going to a temple as you cannot stop someone from going to a mosque or a church. What has happened is the optics of, also remember one more thing, which I'll tell you on your program. Very few people from a strategic point recognize this. Most people are remembered for the monuments they create. 500 years later, जब बच्चा अपनी माँ के साथ जाएगा ना, वो कहेगा कि ये मंदिर तो मोदी जी ने बनाया था. That legacy is very difficult to beat. ये सरदार पटेल का स्टैच्यू उन्होंने बनाया था. Please remember, monuments outlive everything else in terms of legacy building.
Till they are renamed. Dr. Maru, your take on that?
How many people today remember all the things that Jawaharlal Nehru built? Bhakra Nangal Dam Nehru ne banaya.
Damn,
Nagarjun Sagar Dam. No, but Sohail, you trivialize it. Don't, sir. Look, point is not that. I'm also a Hindu. I come from South India. I'm an atheist, right? Is this so-called narrative which you've been talking about true for the rest of the country? It is not. It is not. It is as simple as that. Just 2 months back in my home state of Telangana, the Congress party came back to power, trouncing all these so-called Rambhakts. So, we are a diverse country. Question is not that everywhere there's one dominant narrative. This is a built-up narrative. And last point, in fact, that Sohail made is a correct point, which is that Hindutva is being interpreted, or Hinduism is being interpreted as Hindutva. This is a political narrative. There is political Hinduism and there is religious Hinduism. What did the Shankaracharya recently say? That you're politicizing the creation of a Ram temple. I mean, who is this Narendra Modi to set up a temple of Lord Ram? This is the question Shankaracharyas are asking. That this Pran Pratishthan, who is he to do it? And there was a trust. What happened to the trust? And if it's a political project, the political slogan was Mandir wahi banega jahan Babri Masjid hai. Mandir nahi ban raha hai wahan jahan Babri Masjid hai. So let us sort out the politics of all of this from religion. I think to put the two together does not do justice to the plurality of my religion, in which atheism is an included part. I mean, I can call myself a proud atheist, being a Hindu, because atheism is very, very much part of the philosophy of Hindu. But Hindutva is a regimented political enterprise, in which, if you are not a believer, you are anti-national, as Sohail himself said. So, when you talk of dominant narrative, Priya, I think we have to sort out many issues. One, which part of the country? Two, what is the role of the media? Three, what is the role of political parties? To imagine that all of them are irrelevant and that there is some dominant narrative that has naturally emerged because people of India have changed. That today's India is different from yesterday's India. Today's India worries as much about roti, kapda or makan as yesterday's India did. If you don't have a job, if you don't have a house, if you don't have food for your next meal, what will you worry about? So this was the slogan of 50 years ago, roti, kapada or makan, right? So there are people today who still worry about that. There are others who are better off, who don't have to worry about roti, kapada and makan and may be worrying about the visa they can get to the United States or Canada. I mean, this middle class, right?
But so, right, the point, Dr. Bharat, today's slogan is also Aadhi roti khayenge, lekin mandir wahi banayenge. I think emotion and Hindus is trumped. You and I worry more about jobs than the man on the ground because they are being given the welfare schemes and why is Modi winning elections then?
No, that's precisely the point. That is precisely the point. It is the welfare schemes, it is the spending, which is in recognition of the inadequate purchasing power. Why do you have a welfare scheme? Why are you spending thousands and thousands of crores of rupees on giving subsidized food, subsidized energy, subsidized public transportation? Because you recognize that a large majority of the people do not have the purchasing power to be able to acquire these basics. So to say that Aadhi roti khayenge, kiska slogan hai? I will have my full roti before I go to and the pujari has more than roti, laddu also. I mean, which temple have you gone to where people have not queued up for the prasad, right? So these slogans are political slogans. They are not religious slogans. And one must distinguish between the politics of what is happening today. And that is the dominant narrative you can speak about, as opposed to any real fundamental change in the outlook of the Indian people. I mean, as I said, I have been spending a lot of time in my home state of city of Hyderabad. There, Hindus, Muslims live together. There is no such anti-Hindu or anti-Muslim sentiment among neighbors. My neighbors are all Muslims in Hyderabad. We meet every day. So there are different parts of the country. I mean, Kerala, Sohail mentioned Kerala. Kerala has had a communal harmony for years. There are always radical elements on all sides, but they don't constitute the majority.
Okay. Sohail, your take on this?
I don't know if any of you have read two contemporary philosophers, Richard Dawkins and Alain de Botton. Religion, as Marx many eons ago said, is the opium of the masses. The reality is that Dr. Baru, Priya Sahgal, or Sohail Seth care or don't care about half the roti, blah, blah, blah. You have to understand our relationship with our gods in India. Primarily, it doesn't matter which religion you are part of. Our relationship with God is transaction. The concept of mannat is a bargain. It's not a sacrifice. When you say कि भाई मैं तिरुपति जाऊंगा और मैं ये मांगूंगा भगवान से, I'll ask for this, and then when I receive it, I'll come back. You are actually getting into a transactional relationship. So our relationship, our religion has always been selfish, self-serving, and purposeful. It has never been egalitarian. It has never been empathetic or sacrificing. We have always treated our gods as someone who will who will give us something. I'll give you another consumer example. You have an accident. You see an accident. Someone dies. They said, this bugger was driving fast. He was drunk. Good, he died. Or sad, he died. If the guy is saved, they'll say, Bhagwan ne bachaya hai. But they will never say that the guy died because of God. So our relationship with God is also that God is Teflon coated. Within that human psychological construct, you've got to understand how the Modi government is playing it. A, B. Why are people not attacking Advani? This whole process of Ram Janmabhoomi, Babri Masjid was started by Lal Krishna Advani, who turned a blind eye, one of Dr. Baru's great pals, P.V. Narasimha Rao. Narasimha Rao said, I don't know, I was told incorrectly, but I was not told, blah, blah, blah. His good friend, in fact, Dr. Baru met him the day after that, I think, after the Babri Masjid fell. So, is hammam mein, like in all Turkish baths, sab nange hain. No one can say. Now, you tell me, where has the Congress displayed secularism? Before every election, they go to temples. Before every election, they will go to a mosque or a church. What is happening, which should worry us, is the interdependence of political victories on religion and vice versa. Do you know something? Whether it's a Ram Rahim or the Babaji Radha Swami, all politicians call them. Why? They need the votes of their followers. Until that is separated, and that may take multiple lifetimes, Priya. It won't be in your and my lifetime. This dependence, this intertwining, this interlinkage is what should worry us.
So we're going to take a quick break and we're going to come back and keep the conversation going. So stay with us. Hello and welcome back to Cover Story. We are here talking about the dominant narrative of the Modi government, but in a sense, Dr. Baru, is it also the legacy that the Prime Minister is going to be taking to the next elections? I mean, what is the role he's going to be as the Vishwa Guru, Hindu Hriday Samrat, or the Ann Devta, the welfare scheme? Where do you see the one that he's going to play up the most?
Well, I guess it will be a combination of all three. I mean, though the Vishwaguru part has taken a big bashing because of various problems internationally. So therefore, he's not really, now he has become Vishwamitra, I think. Not so that the external side is a bit of a problematic thing. But certainly, both the welfare schemes and the religion will be the dominant themes. And they're both are tied with each other. That's the point I'm making. That if it was religion alone that was delivering support for the Prime Minister and his party, you wouldn't need all these welfare schemes. The welfare schemes are the roti, kapda, and makan. That is the bread and butter issues. And those are the issues that concern a large majority of Indians. And if you do not address that and simply say that I am a Bhakta of Lord Ram, I build this temple, therefore vote for me, they will not, as they have not in other parts of the country. So you have to combine the economic kind of incentives or programs, the what the people, they used to call it revdis, I think, but that's
Yes.
ultimately the revdis are the ones saving most of them, in each of the states, including in the states. I mean, whether it is the Congress party in Telangana or in
Tamil Nadu.
Tamil Nadu, they're all these subsidies. What do they tell us about our country? They tell us that a large number of Indians are deprived. And the politician, if he wants to win election, has to cater to this deprivation. And that is the dominant challenge for India. You can build 100 temples, you can visit 1,000 temples. But that is not going to solve the problem of unemployment. It's not going to solve the problem of malnutrition. It's not going to solve the problem of women's disempowerment. These are the kind of challenges that our society and our economy is continuing to deal with. And I think every political party does recognize that when it actually goes in for campaigning. I mean, it's the economic incentives that are the final tipping point. Not people don't go to an election booth and put in that vote saying, Hey Ram, Hare Ram, or Sri Ram, Jai Sri Ram. I'm sorry. They go and do that in the hope that this will improve their lives. And so, I mean, you can call me a kind of economic fundamentalist and not a religious fundamentalist, but I do think that in most countries, at the end of the day, people worry about their own well-being uh, when they make their electoral preferences. It's a different matter that when they go to the temple, all of us pray. Right? That's a different issue. But to mix the two, to bring religion into politics is something that I've always been critical, irrespective of which political party does it. I mean, there's no point saying X does it, therefore Y is also doing it. All of them do it. That is true. But all of them recognize at the end of the day that if they don't fulfill the economic aspirations of the people, they're not going to vote for them.
But
that is what is changing. That is what is changing. The economic issues are almost seen to be taken for granted both by the political establishment as well as large swaths of people. What is happening is the layering of religion as the deal breaker or as the deal maker in this case. That is the worrying aspect. B, I'm from Calcutta. And when we were growing up, because of the kind of schools we were in, we sang the Lord's Prayer, we knew the Hanuman Chalisa, we recited the Gayatri Mantra. We weren't told to be secular. It was part of our DNA. That DNA was a function of good parenting. It was also a function of historical, anecdotal context. You knew that there are epics, there are myths, there are this, there are that. I want to draw your attention to a book, one of the most fascinating non-economic books written by Amartya Sen called Idea of Justice, in which he argues that when Krishna was on the chariot with Arjun and they were heading to war, Amartya Sen's poser is, didn't Lord Krishna know that in the wake of war there'll be orphans, death, and destruction? And even then, he talked about dharma, and he talked about dharma, and he talked about duty. What kind of God would condone that? Now, that was Amartya Sen's argument. In the face of logic, religion rarely holds. You still worry about the Shroud of Turin. You still talk about the miracles. The papacy, the Pope, makes you a saint and canonizes you because of 3 miracles that you may have conducted. So we do live in a bizarre vacuum of logic. To layer that with religion is difficult. So you've got to understand the way religion has been popularized You know, I was at the airport the other day and I met one of the characters who played Lord Krishna in Mahabharata. And I don't know his name. One of the film or TV actors.
Hmm.
And while he was talking to me, 3 women in the lounge came and touched his feet. What would you call that? Would you call that stupidity? No. You would call that astha. You would call that divine and blind belief.
I would call that stupidity.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, now, one man's stupidity is another man's belief. One man's stupidity
This
is
is the
another man's
problem.
belief. So now you tell me, this whole, our beautiful country went nuts that Hanuman is drinking milk. Remember?
I know. No,
I sorry,
Ganesh,
Ganesh is drinking
yes,
milk.
yes. Yeah, but that, see,
तो ये चलाने वाले भी चलाएंगे, चलने वाले भी चलेंगे. ये आपको देखना है कि आपकी सबुद्धि कितनी है, साहस कितना है इस देश को ठीक करने में. And I will not, and I repeat, I will not blame Modi for the present predicament. The tutoring, the fashioning, the intertwining of politics with religion started way before. One last point. 1947, August 14, 15. Where was Mahatma Gandhi? In a place called Noakhali in West Bengal. Why? Trying to quell riots. What did Ambedkar say when he threatened to resign in parliament? He says, and what, please, I mean, you know, I don't want to labor the point because it's a short program. Please read Shashi Tharoor's book, Ambedkar, A Life, and you will see the disjointed, the absolute disillusionment that B.R. Ambedkar faced. So we have had this tradition of religion being intertwined with politics.
Okay, last word to Dr. Baru, then we're done.
no, see, it's not a question of religion being intertwined with politics. It is, the issue really is, to what extent are you using religion as a way of political mobilization, as a way of securing political support? What is essentially a relationship between an individual and faith? You bring that into the realm of politics. In a way in which is very strange, because as I said earlier, we are at the same time ensuring roti kapda or makan, I mean the revenues or the freebies. So it's not as if the government thinks that they can get away without delivering some element of redistribution. So it's, religion becomes a way of mobilizing people in politics, and I think that is something I worry about, because that's not going to solve the problem. It's so, you can say Marx said religion is the opium of the masses. Yeah, but opium never solved any problem. Right?
Kept everybody in a good nasha. We're totally out of time, but yeah, one thing that I think one of you flagged off, which I also agree, is today mainstream channels have become spiritual channels. That's all we talk about is Ram Bhakti and Ram Temple.
That's why Astha is closed down.
I don't watch any of them, so I only watch your program, Priya.
On that very good note, I think we will end. Thank you so much, both of you, and I'm going to get you back again for more conversation. So
Jai Shri Ram.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.